Thank you for joining us today for the third installment of the Buffering Podcast. I'm Christian from Erickson Films, here with my co-host Eric from Eric Moran Films. We're joined today by Ian from Halo Canon, and unfortunately this is actually our third attempt to get started because if Cox Internet, if anyone from that company is listening to this, we had an issue with my internet here in Southern California, but we're going to put the past behind us. We're just going to get started. Really grateful today to have Ian with us, and we're going to be discussing his journey as a content creator, specifically in the Halo niche, and just having a hopefully interesting conversation in general. So, Ian, I want to...
Despite everything so far, it's certainly been interesting.
Right. So I just want to get right into, like, what is your experience on the day-to-day as a content creator? And, like, how does that make you feel, just, like, knowing that there's this large community online who looks to you, who looks to your content, and who enjoys the stuff you make? Like, what's that feeling like for you?
Honestly, that's probably what keeps me going the most, is the fact that there are people out there that enjoy it. Because if that weren't the case, there was a point early on where it was just, this is fun, I'm enjoying this, and I want to do it for me. And while that's still an aspect of content creation, at this point, a lot of what motivates me is that I'm going to be able to put this out there and people are going to enjoy it. Or at least I hope people are going to enjoy it. Because I'll tell you, after pretty much 7 years of doing this, finding the motivation can get hard on a lot of days. Which, if anyone's curious why there's been a slowdown of Halo Canon content, that's why.
Well, because you're doing this on top of a full-time job, correct?
Yes.
And
yeah.
so that's
really what crushes my spirits most days is, oh, good, another somebody else fucked up their shit.
Right. No, like I imagine that, like, because I feel like as someone who works part-time and does YouTube, like that feels like a lot to me. So I can only imagine, just like, because I think we only have so much output every day as people, you know, and like, but I it sounds to me like the community that you have is what makes that worth it. All the hours that go into everything.
Absolutely. If I didn't and there's some very nice people that reach out directly and say, hey, thank you for this, or you're doing some great work with this and that. And that always lifts my spirits whenever I get something like that from somebody. Brings me right back up.
Has that opened the door for you for, like, you know, sort of creating friendships with other creators? Like, has that been something that's been a part of it as a YouTube creator for you? Oh, yeah,
definitely. Like Hidden Xperia and Late Night Gaming have been meeting them through this community and through content creation. Collaborating with them has been, where that's happened, has been a lot of fun and keeps you going. And then there are just other people, like, this isn't strictly about YouTube, but like going to meet other content creators at Outpost, Halo Outpost last year was just, the second you meet these guys, you already have like 1,000 things in common. And you just hit it off in an instant. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm. You know, so Eric and I met at VidCon. Are you familiar with VidCon?
I'm familiar. I've never been, but
so like that idea of like going to like a convention where everyone is, you know, of like interest. I agree. It's like an unbeatable experience, honestly.
Yeah.
And then, like, so what I'm also curious about is, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been able to visit 343 Industries, the Halo creators. Have you been able to interact with them? Like, I'm just curious if what you're able to share, because I don't know, maybe there's some NDAs involved. Like, I'm just curious what that experience is like.
I'll keep anything that's NDA. I'll tell you what I can tell you. So ask away, and I'll respond according to what the NDA says it can do.
What was your experience like meeting the creators of your favorite game? Or like, well, I assume it's your favorite game. I don't know.
It is.
I hope so.
No. It's honestly like meeting any of your like, if you've ever met a hero of your own, it's the exact same thing. It's like meeting the people like, I always loved behind the scenes stuff. So meeting the people behind Halo in any capacity is just fangasm is the word. It's a ton of fun. It's great to sit down. Like, the nicest thing is just to get to sit down with them sometimes, and sometimes talk about Halo, sometimes talk about not Halo. Like few years ago, right around the time Halo Wars 2 was coming out or had come out, I got to sit down, not sit down, but we were at this party and a bunch of 343 guys were there, including Jeremy Cook, who was uh, I think he was the art director for Halo Wars 2. He was heavily involved in that game. I just can't remember the exact position he had, but one thing you could do is talk about Halo Wars 2 all day, but we also talked about Warhammer 40K and other tabletop games because
Mm-hmm.
and or just other games in general because it's just it's more than just Halo.
Right. Like seeing that human side of
Yeah.
all of us, right? Like I think that we
Hmm.
often forget that with people who we really look up to, like they're just
Oh
like
yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Well, and then like,
I,
sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, that just made me think of like every experience I've ever had with like a YouTuber, and it's like you only see
Yeah.
them through this certain like lens, and then when you meet them, you're like, wow, this. And most of the experiences I've had with any bigger YouTuber have always been positive, but you realize like, wow, these are like, you know, it's hard. It's hard to understand that when like maybe you're consuming a game or maybe you're watching content. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
And on that note, Ian, have you met any like fans in person? Has that been something that's happened yet?
It happened a lot at Halo Outpost. A
And
lot
how
of
was
people
that?
recognized me just from my voice, and that
Wow.
was very surreal to have. He's like, "Wait a minute, are you Halo Cat? Dude, can I take a picture with you, or can we sit down and talk for a bit?" And it's like, it's very humbling. It's very awesome. It's indescribable in a lot of ways. Like the best part is just people would come up and say, "I'm sorry, hey, can you do the intro?" And it's like, "Hey there, Cannonites" for them or something. It was just so much. It was
Yeah.
just so much fun. Like you always think about like you always worry about like you meet somebody and you don't want to. You're worried about how they're going to react if you
Yeah.
do something like that. But then being on the other side of it, it's like, oh, this is. I don't know about how other people would feel, but this is awesome. I love this. I want more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that sounds awesome.
How much does that like when you get that in person? Like maybe you might feel demotivated, but then you get that in person, like you actually meet these people face to
Oh yeah,
face. How much does that like kind of because I've had it happen like
straight up
once
to
or
11.
twice. Yeah, yeah. Like, does it just make you want to just keep
Oh yeah,
doing it? Yeah,
yeah. Like the set, like as soon as Outpost was over, I was so motivated to do. I had
yeah,
like 1,000 things I wanted to do out of nowhere. It's like it was just because you you get so energized after meeting all these people and having them express like these thanks for you putting a couple videos on YouTube. It,
yeah,
on my end, it feels like this tiny little thing, but to them, it seemed like the way it came off is like, oh, it's this huge moment
And I
in their
got one
lives or
sort of
something.
like follow up on the flip side of that.
Hmm.
So when you are encountering these people in real life who watch your content, which sounds super exciting,
It
um,
is.
how is it if you're dealing with like, let's just say maybe a younger kid who sees you and then like at a place like an event like that and then maybe starts following you and doesn't really go away? Like I don't know if that happened, but I imagine just like when the whole parasocial dynamic comes in where it's like
Hmm.
there's been this immediate, awesome interaction, but then also you realize like I'm a normal person, they're a normal person, and like I need my space. I don't know. I'm just imagining that scenario, but I'm curious if that happened at all.
I'm fortunate that that has not happened at this point. It's
Mm-hmm.
like the people I've interacted with, they're very much they understand social norms. I guess would be the best way to put that.
Mm-hmm.
It's never been an issue where I had to say, "Hey, dude, can you back off for 5 minutes" or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, that's
and
good.
especially like
Yeah.
because the setting so far has entirely been at Halo or gaming events.
yeah,
It's like I certainly see no need to tell somebody off because hey, we're all here to do stuff, and it's all the same. We're all here to do the exact same stuff. So, uh, you know, it's like if somebody came up to my hotel room or something and
yeah.
said, "Hey, can we hang out?" Then I'd be a little, but
Yeah.
that's never happened so far.
I'm glad to hear that. That's
Hmm.
comforting.
I guess kind of another thing that I guess we're kind of curious about is like you do this this lore specific content,
Hmm.
and you're also juggling a job. So what's the process of like creating a video? Like how do you handle that? Do you do it kind of over time? Is it like one of those things you just kind of sit down and write? Like, how is that process for you?
Like essentially, I take every opportunity, every bit of free time I can
Hmm.
that I can tolerate, I should say, because there are times where I just need to stop and you know pay attention to myself, I guess is the
Yeah.
way to put that. But yeah, like for example, I commute to and from the city here to Chicago by train. So whenever I'm on the train in the morning or in the evening, I'll take that opportunity to start writing up a script of some kind or editing or whatever. And then it's just taking every opportunity. Like Saturdays are usually the only day where I'm like, that's entirely me. And then Sundays are like, okay, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna crank something out. We're gonna get a script done. We're gonna get a video done, something like that, just to take full advantage of that time. But
Well, and to follow that up really quick, like,
mhm.
what is your what is the experience you have when you like click the publish button on a video? Like, is that a special kind of feeling for you? Like, I know it is for me personally. Like, when I finished that video that I've been putting all these hours into, all the, some pain that goes into it, and then just like seeing the finished product, I'm curious, like, is that the part that you feel really keeps you coming back, or is it the community, or is it both? Because I know you mentioned the community is very inspiring, but I'm curious, like, to what level just that feeling of like, I made something that I'm proud of and it's a video. Because like for me, that's a big part of it, like, of my creative process.
I'd say it's a bit of both because obviously once you hit that publish button, or I've been like lately, I've been taking full advantage of the premiere option on YouTube, which is just a lot of fun to chat as
Yep.
your videos premiering live for the first time and whatnot. But um, it's very satisfying, obviously, to hit that publish button. But then the best part, I think, is to see the reaction from people, to see those those thumbs up going up, the views going up, the comments coming in, going into I love going in to respond to the comments whenever
Yeah.
I can get the chance,
Yeah, me
or I
too.
feel the motivation to. But
Well, if they're mean, it can take something out
yeah,
of you. That's for sure.
so far it's never been like that. Like the meanest comments I've ever gotten were when I did a video talking about LGBTQ plus people within the Halo universe, and most of that was just like, "Oh, this is good. This is some beautiful salt." I made so much salt that day.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Well, how much
mound
of
for
those
that.
people do you think actually watched the video before
Oh,
commenting
like
on it?
most of the people that were commenting negatively never watched it. I could tell just by the nature of the comments. But
And were you making like a kind of inclusivity argument, and that was not received well, or?
it's for the most part it was just because it was right at the end of I think it might have been last year, it might have been 2018, I can't remember now, but it was right at the end of June, so Pride Month, and like right at that, like those last 2 weeks, I just suddenly felt motivated. Like I think like seeing all these posts about it online from people that I
Mhm.
follow and respect and all that, it just got me in the mood, so to speak, to talk about this. And there'd always been kind of this underlying motivation there, just um, for me. So it just kind of came to a head there where I said, okay, well, there's all these examples. Let's just talk about it. Let's just have fun and talk about this particular topic within the context of the Halo universe. And really, it's not real. Like there's a bit of a inclusivity argument in there, but for the most part, I was just saying, here's some examples of the LGBTQ plus community as it's been represented in Halo so far. Um, and honestly, it was a lot of it was like, I think it's really good, the places that it has been featured, because it's usually it's not distracting from the story. It's here's a gay person, here's a bisexual person or something, and they exist in the universe. But it's not like, hello, I'm gay, and you're like that or something, which that has its place, but I don't think it has its place in Halo.
Mm-hmm. So the internet being the internet, you received some
Yeah,
pushback for that.
yeah, which
Yeah.
I fully went in expecting.
Right.
Yeah.
I like there's no buffer against that. I've seen that in my time in the internet more than enough times to know exactly what I was stepping into, and I just didn't care, because it was something I suddenly felt very passionate about, and I wanted to do it. And then when you get the comments from the people that supported it, or the people whose opinions I actually care about, like a lot of my fellow Halo YouTubers, Late Night Gaming. Oh God, why am I blanking on his name all of a sudden?
Xperia?
The Spearhead. I don't know if Hidden Xperia ever watched it or not, but
Mm-hmm.
I remember those two, and like dozens of other people, some of whom were from 343, and that especially got my spirits up. So it was like seeing all the positive reaction aspect. It was actually like I think the best part of all that was just watching the two best parts was watching the thumbs up and thumbs down ratio fighting each other out. I think it's still negative to this day, but that's fine by me. It's just fun. And then the other thing was watching the subscriber count go up and down. So I think at the end of the day, I net lost 138 subscribers, but obviously it's I'm at 161 now, so
I think
whatever.
Green Skull has like a similar comment about that, like in his video
Yeah.
about where he's like, if this offends you, you can just leave. Like
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
So I respect that, honestly. I think that like as content creators, it's like a very fine line about how much we're gonna get involved, but at the end of the day, if you're just being a good person, I think that you should never, let the fear of people, hating on you stop you just from being a decent human being is the way I would describe that.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Like there have certainly been videos by other Halo content creators. I won't name names or name specific videos, but that I've disagreed with. And if I can't find a constructive way to disagree with that, well, there's the X button. It's like I don't agree with what he's saying. I can't find a constructive way to respond to that. I'm just gone because there's nothing. There's really nothing to do about that. And I'm not going to leave over like a single video or something. It's like, oh, I disagree with this one, but hey, I loved like the last 5 videos.
Right. Yeah. If we do that with people where we like have to be 100% in the same, like the same with every person we admire, we're gonna have like there's gonna be no one left at the end, because we're all individuals. So
yeah. My best of friends, I don't agree with 100% of the time, and I don't think anybody agrees with anybody 100% of the time.
Then it turns into a Discord politics server.
Yeah, exactly.
So, to kind of pivot a little bit, I'm curious your perspective on how to make lore. As someone, I read the Halo books. I love the Halo books. How do you put those in? Because I know you review them. So how do you talk about the Halo books? How do you talk about lore in a way that is interesting to someone who maybe isn't a reader, and a way that is, you feel, still giving the opportunity for someone to read the book and get a good experience out of it, but also be entertaining? So like kind of all those things at once. Because like I think your videos do a great job of that personally. Like I've watched videos of yours on books I haven't read yet. I've skipped the spoilers sections, as you kindly point out in the video. But I think there's an art to that. So I'm curious how you're able to pull that off.
That's something I've still, like, to this day, I still struggle with. Especially because the manner in which I've written these reviews has changed a lot, and especially now, I'm at a point where I'm often able to get an advanced copy of a book, and thus be able to put together a spoiler-free review separate from the big review. I don't really know if I have a straight answer for that. It's the process is essentially, these days at least, is I read like a chapter, I summarize it, and then I point out, oh, how does this connect to something else, or what is this referencing? Because that's really what I wanted to the book reviews, or that's what I try to make the book reviews about, is not strictly here's a summary of the book so you don't have to read it, because the last thing I'd ever want is to deter people from reading a book. Even my most hated book, Mortal Dictata, 4 out of 10. I still recommend people give it a shot for themselves, because I don't, I hate its guts.
We'll talk
Maybe
more
you
about
have a
that
different
later.
opinion. Yeah. But the thing, the book reviews, what motivates me with them is that I want to show how it connects to other parts of the universe. I think the best example of this would be Halo Renegades, because that thing took references from the Kilo 5 trilogy, from Halo Hunters in the Dark, from the Forerunner saga, and like a dozen other disparate story threads. Freaking what is it? Fireteam Apollo from the Loot Crates was involved in that. All this stuff coming together in this what should be this hodgepodge of references, but no, it's this beautiful, wonderfully written story that, love it. And the best part about that is talking about like, well, this is what this is from, and this is how this connects to that. So it's with every book, it's kind of like a new process of figuring out what do I mention, what do I skim over, and how do I make this interesting.
Are you a
Because the
speed
last thing I
reader?
ever want. Oh God, no! I wish. Like back when I was in college, I would finish a book. I could probably finish a book in about 24 a 400-page ish book in about 24 hours.
Wow.
And retain most of that. My brain has not aged well, apparently, or something. I don't know. These days, I take probably close to a month to read a book, maybe if I really squeeze it out. And that's like over the course of like 2 hours a night kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like but if I really push it, I can maybe read it in a couple weeks.
Right. Well, it's just you're probably like getting more out of it that way, I would argue, versus like
100%.
Yeah. But I'm just curious because sorry, go ahead.
There was a time when I could do like the read in 24 hours and keep it all in my head. It worked at one point, but not anymore. Not a decade later.
Do you do the audiobooks at all with the Halo ones?
As much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's very handy. I'll say this though, like I use the audiobooks, but I also have to have something in front of me to read it, be it an ebook or the physical book. Because if I just listen to an audiobook, because I did this with the Game of Thrones, the first two Game of Thrones books, or Song of Ice and Fire books, if I just do the audio, that goes in one ear and right out the other. I just can't retain the information that way.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm reading it with my eyes and hearing it with my ears at the same time, that just makes it stick.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got some gems like Tim Dabo's narration of the second Forerunner trilogy.
Oh my God! Don't get me started.
Yeah. So well, I really appreciate you sharing that because like I know you read a lot in order to do this channel, so it's I think it's good for people to know that like who are like maybe interested in making lore videos about their game because there is so many books about games now, which is it's too many to read, but it's awesome.
Oh my God! I still haven't read the latest Gears book, and I'm so disappointed with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting right up there.
Right. No, it's like. Because I think that, like, for me, like, I haven't been able to read all the Halo books, but I find, like, a channel like yours a good way to keep up to date with the Halo community, whether or not I've read all the books. But I see what you mean, though, that, like, you're also not trying to make it so, like, watch my video, don't read the book. Because I imagine for some people that is a strategy. I don't know. Like, it's hard to say.
Some people, I'm sure. Not that I recall ever being told, like, I prefer to listen to your videos over the books or something. If someone ever said that to me, I'd say, well, that's your choice, but I'd really encourage you to read the books, especially if you want more books. You gotta be invested in what's already there. But at the same time, it's like I said, the main reason I want to make those reviews is to point out how everything connects, because I think, like, even once I read through it, I'll always go into like the discussion threads on the books once they've come out and see, oh, hey, there's this connection I missed. Because there's always seeing how everything connects. That's my favorite part of something like Halo, is the connectivity of all the media.
Yeah, I think they do a good job of that compared to some other games. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, no, that excites me especially as someone who like recently got back into Halo lore. I think that it's really important to have something accessible like a YouTube channel to go to, because a lot of people don't have the time or interest to read an entire book, but want to be like up to date, so that like as a game like Halo Infinite, which hopefully will be coming out this year, you can like go into it being like, I know what's going on, versus I don't know. Like,
What?
I have no idea. Although, I don't know. Obviously, a good game story will do a good job of getting you up there, but I think you get more out of it if you know what's going on. At least that's
Yeah,
my perspective.
100%.
How long? Like, so from what I can tell, reading these takes a lot in itself. How long does it take to create all this stuff and tie everything back together? Because I imagine that's like, I mean, just from what I'm hearing, that seems really consuming.
Yeah. So on the short end, it can take about a month to do all that. Like I said, these days, what I usually do is I kind of read it chapter by chapter, more or less, and then summarize as I go along and draw those connections as they come about.
Mm-hmm.
And then usually after I've done that, excuse me, and at the same time, I should say, I take separate notes, character names, locations, uh, other possible points of interest, and then once I've gone through it, I go back through, reread everything, make just for the sake of making the script cleaner, but also, did I miss this connection here? Or wait a minute, I took this note over here, but it's not mentioned. Why didn't I mention it? Let's go find out why.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a good example of that is recently with Halo Oblivion, the sequel to Halo Silent Storm. There were these one-off lines at one point in the book, and I took notes on these things like, oh, these cool little Covenant tidbits, and unfortunately, I couldn't make them like fit into the summary in any way, in any meaningful way, other than it would just be listing off information, which would be boring. Maybe one day you can go back and talk about those in a video on their own, but at that time, it's like I would love to talk about these, but there's no real way that it fits in here, that it could work, that I could work it in.
Right. So it's like editing with the writing, with everything,
Yeah.
like just making it something that people are going to want to watch the whole thing and not feel bored. I feel like that's the key of YouTube.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
You use actual Halo music in your videos?
Yes.
Uh-oh. So all of a sudden it says we're disconnecting. OBS, give me that. We've been going good this whole time, though. Oh, I'm back. Okay, we're back. We're good. We were just out for like 1 second. All
right.
Yeah, we were just out for 1 second, thankfully. So you use the actual Halo music in your videos?
Yes, and I think most Halo YouTubers do as well.
How do you get around that? Like, is there a copyright thing for that? Like, because I know a lot of other music you can't really use in videos. Like, are you able to use the Halo music and monetize? Like, is that a thing that works?
Sort of. It's very much a legal gray area, and usually you have it very subdued, so it's kind of in the background evoking Halo in some manner, but it's not so loud that essentially it's going to be detected by this system.
Okay, so it's kind of like a balancing act then there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, because like I imagine like a Halo video without the Halo music would be kind of hard to make, like just using royalty-free music. But I was always curious about that because like for me, I use Artlist, this like music licensing platform, and I pay them $200 a year. So sometimes I wish I was able to just use other music, but I've had problems with that before. So like I tried playing my guitar on a stream and I was taken down because the song was a copyrighted song.
Yeah, it gets really like sometimes the copyright system in general is just ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. Well, this stream was a little shorter than what we usually do, but I feel like that was a really meaty interview. So I have to say thank you, Ian. I think that people who were listening got a lot out of that.
Pleasure.
That was we went through a lot in a brief amount of time, I think, considering especially that technology was acting the way it was today.
Yes.
So at this point, if you guys are listening to the recording, I want to say a huge thank you. We're going to be ending the recording portion here. Then we're just going to be hanging out as long as everyone's able to and answering some questions in the stream. But if you listen to the recording, just want to say a huge thank you. Until next time, guys.